Okay, so I will hopefully you'll be able to now open the papers for the AGM from the files that Harry's put into the chat box. But I'll go through the agenda obviously anyway. So very quickly, first, apologies for absence. I've had apologies from Alexina Cassidy, Claire Robertson, Marriott, Maria Lee, and Peter Nalder. The minutes of the last AGM, you probably won't have a huge amount of time to scan through them and see whether you've got any comments. I didn't think there was anything on there that specifically needed talking about. But if anybody else has got anything to raise, then do shout. It's a year ago, isn't it? So, okay. So the next item is the chair's report, which I will briefly summarise. There's a longer report because I do think it's useful to mark where we've got to in the course of a year. I don't want to sort of make this a sort of a huge backslapping session for ourselves, but I do think it's useful to recognise that there are things that we've achieved, despite the fact that there's a huge amount more to do. As an organisation, we are in total only about 4 years old, and we've only been a properly constituted organisation for 2 years. So actually, I think we're doing reasonably well. Just to sort of briefly summarise the last 12 months. Our online platform, Corn Exchange, is maturing, so hopefully building up a useful resource of information and articles on there. So please, if you like it, then share it with people that you know. It's a really good way, we hope, of drawing people into us, getting a better audience. We've been working hard to develop relationships with other groups. Part of that is very much thanks to Ella, who's here, who took on the role of outreach officer earlier on in the year and has been actively contacting dozens of local groups that we already know about. And hopefully we'll find some more that we don't know about yet, which would be great. And we've also been attending events in various locations around the area and going out to talk to people who are similar organisations outside of our area, like the Donor Economics people and the Transition Town group in Milton Keynes and the Harbour Woodland Volunteers. So really sort of trying to extend our network. In terms of the sort of more practical pieces, the air quality monitoring project, which has been going on for a while, came to an end, but hopefully we've gathered some useful data which we can use going forward in active campaigning for more action to improve air quality in our area. We did a pilot programme of home assessments under the Building Resilience project, which we're looking to extend during the winter. We'll talk more about that on another occasion. I'm not going to go into lots of detail now. This year is the first year where we've had guest speakers at every single one of our meetings. Well, almost all of our meetings. We didn't have one in July because we decided to do something else, but I hope that that's proved to be useful and interesting. I've certainly found some of the speakers really inspirational and informative. And I guess last but not least, we do as much as we can to try and hold our local authority to account by going along to the West Northamptonshire Council meetings, speaking up, and by regularly publishing our assessments of how they're progressing in Corn Exchange. And we hope that that's having an impact. I don't have anything else that I wanted to say. Does anybody have any comments on the Chair's report or anything that I've just said before I hand over to Harry for the Treasurer's report? Okay. Right, thank you. Harry.
Okay, so can everybody hear me all right? Yeah, okay, thank you. We have two fixed overheads, which is our subscription to this conferencing system, Zoom, and for the machine that runs our Corn Exchange. So we need to find around about £400 every year to do that. And we've done it historically with donations. We were very successful in getting an £8,500 grant towards the cost of our building resilience project, and we spent a little bit of that last year. We will spend a little bit more when we get the report from our consultant, which was promised earlier this year, and we're still waiting for it. when that report comes out, then we will be able to circulate it, and we will use that to promote the building resilience project for the coming winter. We can only do our surveys when it's relatively cold outdoors, because the system that we use relies upon a decent amount of heat loss between the internal occupants and the outside. So we are going to be using that resource to fund not the surveys themselves, which will have to be paid for by the householders, but we need to do a lot of promotion for it. We need to help our communities gather people who would want to have their homes survey. We've ended up with our own survey equipment, which is great, and we've got a thermal imaging camera, which Rupert has learned to use, and
sort of. It's with me if anybody wants to have a go with it.
But we'll certainly will. If anybody wants to use it, we'll support the use of it one way or the other, won't we, Rupert? Yes. And I don't have anything more to say than that, other than thank you very much for coming on this evening. Jane, any questions? Sorry.
Lovely, thanks very much. That's excellent. So now we come to the more important business of the evening, which is the election of officers. There's 4 formal officer roles in our constitution. We have a chair, a treasurer, a secretary, and membership secretary. Chair is currently me, the treasurer is currently Harry, the secretary is currently me, and the membership secretary is currently Alexina Cassidy, who wasn't able to come tonight but has said that she's happy to continue in that role unless someone else wants to take over. And to be fair, it's a very low input role at the moment. So, do we have any nominations for the role of chair?
I nominate you, Jane.
Any other nominations? Okay, thank you. Nominations for, oh, sorry, we probably ought to officially vote on that. Can I just see a show of hands as people supporting that nomination? Thank you. Nominations for the role of treasurer.
I'm happy to stand.
I'm happy to nominate Harry. Yeah. Does somebody want to second that? Thank you, Bryony. And is everybody okay to vote in favour? Thank you. Secretary. I'm happy to stay as being secretary. I don't see it as a particularly onerous role because it just mainly involves doing the minutes at the meeting. I
nominate you then, Jane.
Thank you, Brian. You're too kind. Can I have a seconder? Thanks, Claire. And show of hands, please. Thank you. Does anybody want to contest the role of membership secretary with Alexina, or shall I nominate her as well? I think we'll take that as Alexina can carry on doing that. Does somebody want to second that? Thanks, I'll put on Harry. Thank you very much. Okay, that's that done. The next item on the agenda is the election of the steering committee members. We currently have 6 other steering committee members, in addition to the 3 people who hold those formal officer roles. The steering group meets once a month online separately to these meetings, and their role is really to sort of make any decisions that need making and to determine strategy for Corn insofar as we need to do that. The Constitution would allow us to have more steering committee members than we currently have, so we shouldn't necessarily consider the fact that the steering committee certainly consists of 9 to stop anybody else putting themselves forward if they want to. So 2 members of the steering committee gave their apologies, but they have confirmed that they would like to continue on the committee, and that's Alexina Cassidy and Claire Robertson Marriott. The other steering committee members here, which is Rupert Knowles, Claire Slater and Bryony Askew. Are you all happy to stay on the steering committee as well? Okay, and then we are.
Can we ask if anyone else that's here this evening would be interested in joining? It's a once a month commitment for an hour.
Okay.
Fair enough.
That's fine. No, it's absolutely fine. But it's an opportunity that's available if people want to do it. And there are two members of the steering committee who aren't here and I haven't had apologies from, which is Jonathan Harris and Orianne Nayrud. I will check with them that they're happy to remain on the steering committee, that neither of them have given any indication that they don't want to. So assuming that they agree to stay on, is everybody comfortable with the steering committee to remain as it currently is with 9 members, the 3 officers and 6 other people? Okay, thank you. Okay, so there's only one other item on the agenda, which is around other roles. The Constitution allows to have other roles outside of the mandatory ones, and those roles don't require the person to sit on the steering committee. Although some of the committee members do have other roles. For example, Rupert is our farming correspondent, and some of us are also part of the small editorial team that produces Corn Exchange. So that's Alexina, Harry, Claire Slater, and myself get together to produce, publish, edit, whatever needs doing for what gets published on Corn Exchange. And we'd be very happy to see other people contribute to that if anybody wants to. Again, it's not an obligation. We completely understand that people have lots of commitments, but this is not, running Corn is not an exclusive club. We are very happy to have new voices and new thoughts of everything that we do. So I mentioned previously that Ella kindly agreed to take on the role of outreach officer, and she's also kindly agreed to continue in that role. It's relatively informal, and anything role of that kind is as much as you want to make it, really. But you know, it's great that Ella has done some really good work for us on that this year. And we've had some very positive responses to the contacts that you've made with other groups. So thank you for that. We are hoping that we might have someone who would be willing to fulfill a role of something like sustainable travel officer, but as he's not here tonight and I haven't asked him, we're not going to take that any further at the moment. There is one other opportunity that has specifically come our way recently. So some of you might have come across a really good organisation called Save Our Street Trees. It's based in Northampton, was set up about 7 years ago by Alice Whitehead, who realised that, you know, urban trees were being lost and not replaced and not very well looked after if they were still there. In the 7 years since she set up the organisation, she's done tree planting projects in various places. She has set up a small network of tree guardians, so they're really people who look after street trees. She has set up a website, which is a really useful resource with lots of information about how you can plant a tree with the maps to make sure it survives, how you can look after it, what sort of trees are suitable for what kind of situation. Unfortunately, because of work commitments, Alice is having to step down as chair of Save Our Street Trees, and she hasn't found anyone else to take over, which means that the organisation is essentially going to fold, which is a real shame. But you know, Harry and I have met with Alice and completely understand that is the situation that she's in. And Nick, I have to apologise to you specifically because I know that Harry and I agreed to give you an update from our meeting with Alice, and I totally forgot about it. So I'm very sorry. But anyway, consider this to be an update, and we can give you a bit more separately at another time. But you know, what we agreed with Alice is that rather than see all the good work that she's done just sort of fade away, that Corn would try and do what we could to pick up the work that she's put in place. So, for example, we're going to take over hosting the Save Our Street Trees website at some point, so that all the information on there will continue to be available to people. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about that, Harry?
Well, I think it's entirely, it's what we would want to do. We would want to get involved with such a thing if it didn't already exist. So I can't see us being in any position to do other than maintain what Alice has achieved. So we're really looking to find a group of people who in Northampton would be able to develop and build upon what she's started. And she's given us a very big shopping list of things that she believes are implicit in her work, which we can share with anyone who's interested, Mick.
Yeah, she's given us a lot of information. We haven't sort of put it into a formal kind of role description or anything like that, but it's certainly available for people to see. And
I have to say,
yeah.
Sorry, Jane. Looking at the list is pretty full on, so I can
Yes.
understand that it would want to be a role where it would be managed and delegated. And what's really good is that people in Northampton are coming forward with good ideas for their street or their neighbourhood. So we would want to be able to pick up and encourage wherever they happen. And Alice is doing that right now, but we would want to relieve her of that as soon as we could.
Absolutely. Yeah, she now has a full-time job and she also has a family. So, yeah, she's getting pulled in all sorts of directions. But anyway, so that's probably as much as we need to say on that at the moment, unless anyone's got any questions on the Save Our Street Trees topic. Oh, Mick, you're on mute. Mute. You need to unmute yourself. There you go. Oh.
So
there you go.
How are you taking on that role? Are you got someone taking that up, or?
No, not at the moment.
Do you want me to do something of that work?
I think that would be lovely. But perhaps we need to have a conversation about which bits of it you'd want to do. As Harry said, it's a pretty. Alice was very heavily engaged with it for quite a long time.
Yeah, the technical aspect of the website is something that we'll be able to handle as and when it's appropriate to switch it over. But it's the day-to-day reaction to incoming requests or queries or that kind of thing, which we wouldn't, in our current circumstance, have enough manpower to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case of, I don't like putting my hand up for something I don't actually know what it might involve, but
absolutely.
I'm interested in taking on something of that role, and it's then finding out who the contacts are and how that mechanism will work. So I'd like to sort of express an interest, but maybe I should be on the steering committee as well. I don't know whether that, but once again, this is my first meeting. I don't really.
I know, it's a lot to ask, isn't it?
This guy who's just arrived and says he wants to be on a steering committee and take on half your work, sort of thing. But,
just tiptoe around the edge, Mick.
Well, what I might suggest, so I guess there's two things there. So in terms of the Save Our Street Trees thing, we can share with you the information that Alice has given us, so you can decide if that feels like a good fit for you.
Yeah.
And in terms of the steering committee, maybe you'd just like to come along to the next one and see we'll see what you think.
Yeah, that might be a better way to do it, because I don't want to be sort of doing too much without.
Well, we've already taken on board your feedback from the website, so any more contributions, Mick, would be gratefully received.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
We're looking to improve all the time. The next, just so you know, but I can send you the details more formally, but the next steering committee is on the 30th, Monday the 30th of October. They're normally on the last Monday of every month. And it's an evening meeting like this one, but they run 8 till 9.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think the only other thing I was just going to add to that is that there are plenty of other areas that could benefit from somebody giving a bit of focus to them. So, you know, things like looking at perhaps water quality or food security and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that you should do that, Mick, but just as a general point, if there are people that are interested in doing specific, even if it's just like short-term discrete projects or pieces of research, then there are always things that can be done. Honestly, there's so much. Okay, and that's the end of the agenda, other than to say that the date of the next AGM will be Thursday, the 17th of October next year, 2024. Unless anybody has got anything that they want to add to that, my intention now is to stop this recording. Natasha, who is our guest speaker for the main part of the meeting, is waiting online. So when she comes on at 8 o'clock, we will restart the recording. So if everyone, we can either stay and we can talk amongst ourselves, or if people want to go and take a little comfort break, then that's fine. Rupert.
I think as a group, we ought to thank you, Jane, and Harry, for the enormous amount of work you two put in on this. And it wouldn't work without you. So fantastic job. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very kind, Rupert. Thank you. It's a labour of love, I have to say.
It's I would say it's more of a compulsion than anything else.
But you're very efficient as well. Which is
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be organised, I feel. Thank you, Rupert. It's very kind of you. And hi, Dave. I see you, unfortunately, you missed all but the very end of the AGM, but perhaps you were just joining for the guest speaker anyway. Okay. So unless anyone else has got anything they want to say pertaining to the AGM specifically, I will stop this part of the recording.